What is up, everybody? It is JT Sports. I am back to you guys with another video, and I'm here with my Carolina Panthers 2021 record prediction. Going to be giving you guys my best case scenario, my worst case scenario, and my overall record prediction for the Panthers this upcoming season. Before I get into it, if you haven't already, make sure that you guys subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you don't miss when I upload a new video, and help a brother out. Hit that like button. That like button is really important. A lot of you guys always asking what you can do to support the channel. Hitting that like button helps my videos rank higher in the YouTube search algorithm. If I rank higher in the YouTube search algorithm, I get more views and it helps the channel grow. So hit that like button. It takes less than a second to do. And on top of that, it's also free. Carolina last year went 5-11. They finished in third place in the NFC South. And I'm pretty high on Carolina this season. I feel like this is a fringe playoff team. This is a team that could make the playoffs, but they also are missing a couple of key pieces for me to write them in as a sure playoff lock. But I definitely like what this team has done this offseason. I like the addition of Sam Darnold at quarterback. I know a lot of Carolina Panthers fans may not believe in Sam Darnold, but I think he's definitely an upgrade from Teddy Bridgewater. You see, Carolina, although they lost 11 games, this was a really competitive football team under Matt Rule, who was going into his first season last year. And what you want to see out of a young football team is a team that is competitive in the majority of their games. 7 out of 11 of Carolina's losses last year were decided by one possession or less. And if the ball would have bounced in Carolina's direction, a handful of those games, they could have backdoored their way to the playoffs. I feel like a reason why they were not able to win a lot of those one possession games in 2020 was because of Teddy Bridgewater. And before the season began, when Carolina first brought in Teddy Bridgewater, I said, listen, Teddy Bridgewater isn't going to lose you any games, but he's not going to win you any games neither. And we saw a lot of that. I believe that Sam Darnold definitely has that upside, that if Carolina can definitely kind of revitalize him, he can end up being a really good quarterback for this franchise for the next couple of seasons. Now, you look at what he had to work with the New York Jets compared to what he has to work with now Carolina, it's completely night and day different. You have a better coaching staff. You have a slightly better offensive line. You have an incredible group of wide receivers. DJ Moore, one of the most underrated wide receivers in the league. You bring in Terrence Marshall in this past year's draft, who's going to end up replacing Curtis Samuel, who is now with the Washington football team. And you have Robbie Anderson, who is one of the best deep threats that we currently have in the NFL right now. On top of that, you bring back a healthy Christian McCaffrey, who missed a majority of last season. There's all the weapons at Sam Darnold's disposal to be successful for Carolina this year. And on top of that, they have one of the better young and up-and-coming defenses led by Jeremy Chinn going into his second year and Brian Burns. So I really like how Carolina's looking right now. My best case scenario for this team is going to be 11-6. I think this team definitely can win 11 games if everything goes right. You look at Sam Darnold, I definitely think he's going to be the guy to get you there. You have Christian McCaffrey, who not only is one of the best running backs in the NFL in terms of what he's able to do running the football through the tackles, but he's also able to line up and be your second best wide receiver at certain times in certain situations and formations. So I don't really know how you're going to game plan to stop the passing attack for Carolina per se when it comes to what they have at the wide receiver position. And on top of that, the threat of Christian McCaffrey catching the ball out of the backfield and also lining up at wide receiver in certain formations. You also look at that defense. That defense came through for Carolina in a good amount of games. You look at Jeremy Chinn. Jeremy Chinn was like the Swiss Army knife. He not only played safety, but he also was playing linebacker in certain situations. He was all over the field for Carolina. You look at Brian Burns. Brian Burns is the most underrated pass rusher in the league. Then you improve the cornerback position, which was your Achilles heel. You bring in J.C. Horn, who was, in my opinion, the best cornerback coming out of this year's draft. You have A.J. Bouye. You have my guy, Dante Jackson. You have what could be the best cornerback room that Carolina has had in a very long time. So for Carolina, the upside is definitely there for this team to go 11-6, and they could be competing with the New Orleans Saints for second place in this division. My worst case scenario for this team is 7-10. The offensive line is a huge concern that I have. Aside from Taylor Morton, you don't really have nobody else there. And although the offensive line for Sam Darnold is slightly better than what it was with the New York Jets, it's definitely a major area of concern. As we already know, when you are trying to win football games, so you're trying to get to the playoffs, you have to be good up front. You look at New Orleans, you look at Tampa Bay, those are two teams that have two of the best offensive lines in the league. New Orleans has a top 5 offensive line. Tampa Bay probably has a top 10 offensive line. And if Carolina wants to get into the playoffs, they're going to have great play out of their offensive line this year. On top of that, the linebacker position for this defense kind of could be an area of concern. Shaq Thompson is a guy who has gotten a lot of hate over the last couple of months from Carolina Panthers fans. He's not bad, but Panthers fans expect better. So linebacker is an area of concern that I have. This defense is pretty solid, but linebacker I feel like could be better. And that offensive line for Carolina definitely is a big concern. It doesn't matter how many guys you have to throw to out on the perimeter. It doesn't matter if you have the best receivers in the NFL and you have the best running back in the NFL. At the end of the day, you still need the big guys up front to get the job done. So offensive line is a big area that I have a huge issue with. So 7-10 is my worst case scenario for Carolina this season. Now, before I get into my record prediction for Carolina, I want to talk about my 2 biggest swing games. For those of you guys who don't know what swing games are season-defining games. These are games that if you are a Panthers fan, you're going to look back upon the end of the year and you're going to say, if we would have won this game, our season would have went this way, or we won this game and that's how we ended up having the season that we had. Week 11 versus Washington, you're going to be facing up against your old ball coach and Ron Rivera. You're going to be fighting for your playoff lives at this point because this is a team that probably could be looking at that 6 or 7 spot in the NFC playoff race. So I think that Washington game is going to be really huge. You play that game at home, and on top of that, you're coming off a really tough stretch where you just played New England in week 9, you faced Arizona. Then, after you play Washington, you have to play the Dolphins. You have a bye week 13, and coming off that bye, you have to play Atlanta, which is a pretty easy game that could be winnable. Then you got to go on the road, face the Bills. You come back, face the Bucs at home. You face New Orleans week 17, then you have to face the Buccaneers again. So, that Washington game is like a start-off game. I feel like if Carolina can win that game, then I definitely think they're going to have a lot of momentum. And if they win that game, I think that's going to be really important for how they could end up finishing out the season and find a way to get into the playoffs. That Buccaneers game week 18 is another important game because I feel like that game, if Carolina is as good as what I feel they can be, against the Buccaneers, the last game of the season, that could be the game that decides if Carolina ends up making it into the playoffs with that final playoff spot being that 7th seed. If they win that game, they could very well be in it. But if not, then they probably could end up the season looking outside of the playoffs, which goes into my final record prediction, which is 8-9. I really wanted to have the Panthers at 9-8, but I have them at 8-9. I feel like the offensive line is just too big of a concern for me to see this team getting into the playoffs as a lock. Not saying that I don't think they can do it. I'm just saying I'm not as confident. If the offensive line was slightly better, then I definitely would have this team at 9, probably 10 wins. But with that offensive line being the question, I just don't really know how great this offense could be because the offensive line could kind of be a hindrance to how good this offense could be overall with the talent that they have. So with me having questions about the offensive line, I have them at 8-9, but I definitely was really close to having this team at 9 wins. I really like what Matt Rhule has done so far. I'm really confident in him going into his 2nd season as the head coach for the Carolina Panthers. I like this coaching staff. I like Joe Brady as their OC. I like Sam Darnold at QB. There's a lot of things that I love about this team. I just think that this year they could be on the outside looking into the playoffs, but Let me know what you guys think about Carolina this year. Let me know your record prediction for the Carolina Panthers going into the 2021 NFL season. How good do you guys feel this team will be? Make sure that you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel for more NFL videos and college football videos. And thanks for watching.